PerGron, look under the bed.
I don't want to.
Good call. Probably a good call.
Yeah, not after this movie.
All right. That's right, everybody. We are back after our phenomenal We're All Going to the World's Fair podcast that sort of branched off of the topic of that movie into the broader topic of online horror and also kind of like the morally ambiguous side of online communities and how it can be a dangerous sort of tightrope to walk from time to time. PerGron, we're going to try and recapture that magic with this podcast, and I don't know how well we're going to do. This is the sequel, essentially.
We're either going to do it as well as a good sequel, or we're going to do it as well as Avatar 2, The Way of Water.
Oh my god, we're... yeah. Oh god, I don't want to... Avatar 2, like, the movie has flaws, but I don't necessarily think it's like a shining example of a terrible sequel, though.
Oh, I just wanted to dunk on it in the first minute.
That's fair. All right, so tonight we're talking Skinamarink and PerGron. This was, I think you and I kind of both sort of circled the same sort of horror communities, so it was no surprise to me that this was on your radar. It was on my radar as well. It's funny because when you tagged me, you're like, Tiki, you've got to see Skinamarink. I was like, do you think I am not going to see Skinamarink?
I figured you were, but I'm like, I gotta put this out there.
But yeah, so basically, folks, what we're going to be doing with this podcast is we're going to be talking Skinamarink for sure, and it's a very divisive movie, and I think PerGron and I have I respect the hell out of the movie, but I think PerGron actively enjoys it a lot more than I do. But we're going to be using that discussion to spin off into some more abstract topics, and I even think the topics are a little bit more abstract than what we were covering on the World's Fair podcast, because we're going back, we're going deep, we're going into childhood memories, liminal spaces, nightmares. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. So let's start with the movie itself. PerGron, why don't you tell us how you felt?
Yeah, just real quick before we do that, I just want to give a spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen it, because I do think we'll probably end up getting into some spoilers, and you have to see it, in my personal opinion.
The cynical side of me would be like, what spoilers?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that, but I do think that the overall storyline is something that I went in knowing nothing, and I think it really added to it. And I also want to just give everybody a warning. I have pet frogs, and they are really horny tonight. So if you hear noises in the background, that's what they are. They have been calling nonstop, and I can't. I put a blanket over their tank to shut them up, but if you hear weird squeaking in the back, I promise it's not like a weird, terrifying demon. It's just some horny frogs.
It's all good. I was playing Mario Party with OSU Phantom, Jokers, and Jacob Weil last week. It was a fun time. And Jacob Weil, he has this tank for his turtles, and it was filtering every 10 minutes or so. And it was kind of giving me a little bit of a Skinamarink vibe, because it would catch me off guard every 10 minutes. I'd be like, wait, what's that? What's that? Anyways.
But yeah, so I'll talk Skinamarink a little bit. I've now seen it twice.
Oh God, I mean, I will watch it again once it comes on Shudder. I am not watching it again on a big screen. I am.
I went to see it. I love the experience so much on the big screen that
I have thoughts about my big screen experience. I actually think that me seeing it in a crowd did not help my experience. I'll get there when I get there.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into that real quick, because you did ask me to just sum it up real quick. So Skinamarink is a movie, in the loosest term I can possibly use, about
this makes Blair Witch look like The Conjuring.
Yeah, it's very experimental, incredibly experimental, and it uses some really, really just abstract stuff in it. It's very I can't recommend this to most people. I genuinely
no.
As much as I love this, I went to see it the other day with one of my good friends who also loves horror, and we were going to bring one of our other friends to see it, and I told him, you're going to hate it. You're going to hate this movie. And he ended up bailing on us. And
yeah,
it's
my best friend is like really into horror, but she would absolutely despise this movie.
Yeah, like
I mean, I tried to watch Haunting of Hill House with her, and that was even too slow for her.
Wow. Oh, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I was like, just get to the broken neck lady. Just get there. Episode 4.
But yeah,
Anyways.
I found in my personal experience this to be not overhyped, which I was really worried about.
Uh-huh.
It's people have been saying it's the scariest movie of the past decade, whatever. Like they say that about every horror movie coming out. So I didn't go into it expecting the scariest.
They were literally saying that about Smile, and
yeah, I mean,
I have thoughts on Smile that I don't want to taint this podcast with. Let's just.
They said it about Hereditary, which was great. One of my favorites.
Yeah, Hereditary is legitimate, I think.
I wouldn't call it super scary. I like the.
I was freaked out. Hereditary is very, very, very unsettling, I think.
Oh, for sure. But I found this one like actively scary.
Uh-huh.
And I think it really is the atmosphere of it. And if you're not sitting in the perfect atmosphere to be engrossed in this movie, I think it won't work.
Okay, so for me, I think the perfect atmosphere is at 2 a.m. On my laptop with headphones in the complete dark. I do not think the right atmosphere for this movie was in a movie theater with my dad, who was very noticeably getting bored throughout the whole movie, and that was like drawing me out of it the whole time. And also with, I'm sure there were people in the theater who appreciated the movie. I'm sure there were, but directly in front of me, there were definitely a couple that kept like whispering stuff to themselves.
Oh.
So I very much think that don't get me wrong, I don't regret seeing it in theaters. I'm glad I was able to give it my money first and foremost.
Oh, absolutely.
And I am glad it is a unique experience. But by the same token, I'm actually I actually think this is one of those rare cases. I think Paranormal Activity was kind of the same way, where I actually think it might play a little bit better at home, like on a small laptop screen.
Oh, I can definitely see that. I kind of get lucky because I go to this art house cinema that I have nearby that has a dress code.
Oh, Jesus.
To go into. Like, it's not like a super like black tie dress code, but you have to be wearing you can't go in wearing shorts and t-shirts.
Oh, wow.
So I usually just go flannels and like a nice pair of slacks.
Literally all my wardrobe is t-shirts.
So it's a very indie place. It's a lot of indie people, and that's kind of the vibe I enjoy anyway.
I wish I had a place. I'm sure there's places like that in San Francisco. That's just a $20 bus ride away.
If they have them in Southern Maine, they definitely have them in San Francisco.
Right.
But it's like super cheap to get in, and they have like 4 theaters total. They don't play any blockbusters. They don't play anything put out by a big studio. And when you get in, you pay to enter, and you can go see as many movies as you want to see.
Oh my God, that's amazing!
It's so cool. So I usually just do marathons. I didn't this time because
dude, I'm jealous.
But I went to see it by myself the first time, and I was the only person in the theater. Because it was Monday night. I was the only person in the theater, and I was petrified. Or Sunday night.
I probably would have been petrified if I was like that. That's the thing. I saw it on a Saturday night. It was a full house, and I was with my dad. I think the full house and me with my dad were both detriments.
Probably. And then I went to see it on Tuesday night again with a good friend of mine, and there were more people in the audience, but the people there are the people that want to go see Skinamarink.
Sure.
So it was dead silent except for one jump scare in the movie where everyone at the same exact time screamed, which was amazing. But they also, it's like, this is on like an old crank, not like a film reel, but they have the screen that you actually have to have somebody operating it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which is super cool. And the vibe is it's immaculate. So it really, for me, this was like one of the greatest film experiences I've ever had. And like at the end of the movie, we had the lights just come on because there's no credits at the end of this movie.
The credits are all at the beginning. I kind of had a feeling that would happen when I saw the credits at the beginning.
I love that because the movie just goes to black and the lights come on. And we sat there.
Totally.
Everybody sat there for like a good 2 minutes without moving. It was so eerie. But I found this to be, and that's very much a unique experience that not a lot of people are going to get to have. But for me, it worked so well. And I think that's what made me appreciate the movie so much, was that experience. And I can see going to like a mainstream theater with like lots of people who maybe aren't as into it could be.
Basically, the crowd that was there was essentially the kids who had heard about it through TikTok. Yeah. Like, and it was also the one and only time that I have seen in my local theater where, an usher actually had to come in and kick kids out because of them being underage.
Oh, geez.
Which I actually thought was a weird sort of like gray area because the movie is technically not rated.
Right.
Like, it's not even NC-17. It's just they literally didn't have the budget to bring it through the MPAA.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't want to get too in the weeds about that particular incident, but that incident, though, it kind of like it was one of those things where it almost kind of like this. It kicked the screening off in this really weird, tense mood. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
All right. So for me, I want to love this thing so bad. I really do. That's the thing. Like, I am not one of those people who's like, what the fuck did I just watch? That was garbage. Like, no, I get what this movie is trying to do. And I get the feelings associated with this movie. That's why I very much do want to have this kind of broader conversation about, you know, like scary childhood memories and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I just, as a movie itself, unfortunately, it really didn't come together for me. I wanted it to so bad. I just think it's a little bit like, I get the strength of it being ambiguous, but for me, I was just like, I was basically spending the whole movie. And again, I think the situation I was in, you know, with being with my dad and being next to people who might not be entirely engaged with it. Like, I was basically spending the whole movie, like, trying to grasp onto something to be genuinely hooked into. Mm-hmm. And I will say that by far, I think the scariest, most effective moment in this movie is the one that everybody is talking about. And that is, you know, the bed scene. Mm-hmm. Like, that scene gave me, like, that was what everyone's saying, you know, like just like you don't even want to breathe. You almost don't even want to look at the screen. Like, yeah, I was totally there. I just wish more of the movie held on that sort of vibe. And I don't know, like, by the end of the movie, I was honestly just like, okay, Legos, corners of walls. All right, movie, come on now, come on. And I will admit, I am one of the few people where I genuinely don't find the stuff that goes down at the end to be all that unsettling. I mean, it's scary, yeah, but okay, let me ask you this. Did you actually, and it's totally fine if you didn't have time to, but did you look into the short film Heck at all?
I didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, so that movie's 30 minutes long, and basically the core premise of that movie is that the kid has died, and he is now haunting his house, but he doesn't realize it, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why he's unable to go outside, and there's this whole thing where the mother is still alive, and there's this one really haunting moment in Heck where the kid's like, "Don't worry, Mommy, I'm sorry I had cancer, but I'm all better now." And then eventually the mother kills herself and joins him. Mm-hmm. And the big twist of Heck, I'm sorry, do you mind if I give it away?
Yeah, spoil it, that's fine.
Okay, cool. The big twist is that it starts the flash forward thing, which I was super intrigued by in this movie, but I think it was too vague. But in Heck, I think it works really well because the flash forward thing of like the hundreds of days later, it happens a number of times throughout the last like 5 minutes or so of Hep, to the point of like the ending is very chilling because the child basically, after the mother and the child are just in this house, it's basically like a play on the idea that ghosts haunt houses for eternity. You know what I mean? And so essentially it ends with it being like 50 something odd years later, and they're finally coming to the realization that they're in hell. And for me, I think even though it's done in basically the same style as this, almost even a little bit more lo-fi than this, I just think that the actual DNA of the plot and the structure was a little bit more tangible. And I get the appeal in the untangible. I do. I don't know. Like, it's certainly a movie that I'm kind of like hyper fixated on right now as far as reading other people's interpretations. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to give it one more shot on Shudder and watch it at like 2 a.m. And I hope that I have a more consistently engaging experience with it.
Right.
All right. You understand? You get what I'm trying to say?
Oh, totally. And I think it's definitely a movie where, again, it's one of those movies that's just not for everybody. And not that it's not for you, but just like, it's one of those things that you got to go.
It should be for me. That was the frustrating thing about it.
I personally found it really engaging, and I like more abstract stuff. So I think that's probably one of them. I really like the abstract of it. But I did read a little bit of like people's takes away from it. And one take, when I went to see it the second time, one take that I had from it one take that I saw from it, really informed my second viewing and made it all the better. Which was, and I don't know if you've heard this take, but it was that, spoilers again, at the beginning of the film, it's revealed that Kevin, the little boy, fell down the stairs. And I saw a take that said, this Kevin in a coma, and all of this is his fading memories. And the reason it starts off, Dad's gone, doors and windows are gone, is because it's the beginning. And as he slips, things start changing.
I like that.
And as he's like experiencing this, things get weirder and weirder because he's deeper and deeper in this coma. And at the very end, when he's told to go to sleep, he is now dead. And I saw that take, and it informed the second viewing, and I really appreciated it even more that way. But the movie doesn't give that context.
I mean, in a way, this movie really is the ultimate Rorschach test, right? It really can be anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is one of the appeals of it. I mean, I think maybe for the next 10 minutes or so, we should kind of talk about some of the theories that people have had before kind of transitioning into some of our own experiences. So I think, to me, and maybe this is just projecting, like, I don't want to get into a ton of personal detail, but is projecting not necessarily when I was a kid, but more so when I was like a preteen. There was some of this shit going down in my life. Drug addiction. And I definitely think that the whole element of the parents being gone and the kids kind of having to rely on themselves, and then when the parents do show up, it's literally the fucking scariest scene in the movie because they're just acting so off. I don't know. What do you think of that, Reed?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I could also see that affecting the whole, like, maybe the plumbing's out, and that's why maybe they're neglecting the bills, and that's why the house is literally kind of falling apart.
Yeah, that is definitely an interesting take, and I saw that one a little bit as well. In circulation. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. More than I do some of the other theories I've seen going around. One of my personal favorites, besides the coma theory, which I think is my favorite theory, and it's kind of the viewing that I've gone in with. But another one I saw was it's about child abuse and
I
neglect.
think the drug addict thing is probably along the same
Yeah.
line.
But like when Kevin falls down the stairs, there's a theory that he was actually pushed, and that's why his dad says he doesn't need stitches this time.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I feel like this movie almost intentionally sets up threads that we think it's going to pay off later, and then it just doesn't. And
Then it
honestly,
doesn't. Yeah.
that was one of the things that was really frustrating to me the first time I watched it, but is intriguing to me the more I ponder it. So that whole conversation is definitely one of the big things, like the whole fall down the stairs. I do get the feeling that it's been a reoccurring thing. I get the feeling that that is why the two kids are so, bonded to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's definitely deceit going on for sure. So I think it's practically canon that the mother divorced the father in a messy way, and there's a lot of lingering emotion from the kids over that.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
of the whole, like, I don't want to talk about what happened with mom and stuff like that.
right. It definitely doesn't feel like a dead parent thing.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
It feels like a left parent thing.
Sure.
Because they're also not that surprised when she sees her mom on the bed. So it's not like
Exactly. Right.
it's not like
Right.
oh you're dead. What's going on with you? It's a more of like a you're here kind of thing. So I would definitely agree with that. I don't think it's a dead parent thing. It's probably a messy divorce.
And the way I would read into it is that, like, I don't know, and this is just me kind of throwing out like Matt Pat style theories here, but I would guess that she's probably like in the middle of a custody battle with him over him being physically abusive. And I would guess that, like, because the kids are at that age where they probably fucking blame themselves for the abuse. You know what I mean? Because that's just how
Right.
little kid minds work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know. There's a lot of like lingering shit going on there.
Oh, for sure.
Any other big theories?
Not really. I think we've kind of covered the three big ones.
All right. Yeah. So let's kind of get into some of the elements of this film that kind of called back to your own childhood. Can you think of any?
There's a couple that kind of come to mind.
Go ahead.
One of them, there was a point where my parents were on vacation or something. They went on a trip and they left me and my sister with my grandma. And my grandma went to bed and we slept in the living room on a couple air mattresses. Or she slept on the couch, I slept on the air mattress. And my grandma's fridge would she had an ice maker, so the ice maker would turn on periodically. And it's a pitch black house. I've young enough to be like a little worried about like where are my parents? I don't know where they are.
Right.
And as I was falling asleep, I remember my little sister whispering over to me from the couch, and I wasn't sure if it was like a real her actually whispering, if this was
God. Which is another thing this movie does do really well, is kind of like you can't even really trust that whoever's talking is actually talking.
Right.
You can't trust the subtitles. You can't trust anything.
No, there's no sense of trust there. But I remember her whispering my name, and then saying, "I don't like the monster."
Oh my God!
Because she's about 3 years younger than me. So kind of the same age dynamics as the kids in this movie. And then the fridge kicked on.
Oh my God.
And during the day, I've heard this fridge a million times.
Sure,
you know?
Sure.
But at night, as I'm kind of falling asleep, it's really late. It's probably like 1 a.m. at this point. And I had never stayed up that late, except maybe on like New Year's Eve. And I remember being absolutely petrified and not knowing throughout the entire night if I was sleeping or not. I remember getting up and walking around the house.
Oh my God.
I remember hearing a noise downstairs and using a flashlight to go down the stairs and seeing the cellar door. And they had a finished cellar that used to be a playroom. Like we'd go play with all our toys down there. And I remember very vividly, which I was probably like lucid dreaming. But I remember very vividly opening the door and it just being completely pitch black, like unnaturally pitch black, to the point that I couldn't see like more than a foot in front of my face.
Sure.
And then I remember turning around and sprinting upstairs and leaving the door open.
Oh my God.
And I did not sleep for the rest of the night because with all the noises combined, and my sister talking to me, which turns out she talks in her sleep, but I didn't know that because we didn't share a room and all of that stuff. This movie brought back this like primal fight or flight fear from that very moment that I remember still to this day as one of the scariest moments of my entire life.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because that very much is that sort of like that's what people are talking about. This movie does kind of like tap into and we should probably talk a little bit more about how the film is shot too. How like you barely see the actors at all. It's all corners. It's all like obscure angles. It's all darkness.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie. I think the film kind of leaned into that a little too hard. I really wish there was a little bit more of a mix of like, I think this film would have been even more unnerving, honestly, if the cameras did follow the kids a little bit more and it kind of took on this sort of element of like, well, it's found footage, but who the fuck is filming the footage? You know what I mean? Right. Because honestly, I felt like some of the most unnerving things in the like the bed scene, for example, do come directly from camera pans.
Mm-hmm. I think that this, for one, this screenshot you guys are looking at right now is the most of a character you see.
More or less, yeah.
It's this, and then you also see the mom from the back as well. But this is about all you get. And I really like that you don't at any point see character faces, except one point, which was fucking terrifying. When you see the little girl, but you don't really see her face as much as you see where her face
by
should
nature,
be.
You do not see her face.
Yeah, it's where her face should be. Which I found just frightening as hell. Like that sort of stuff scares the absolute shit.
It's a ripoff of a Twilight Zone visual, though.
It is, but it scares me in the Twilight Zone too.
No, it does. I know. I'm just there's a couple things in this. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not really like on a mechanical level. The thing I like about the jump scares in this movie is the fact that they happen so infrequently that you're kind of almost always on edge about when one's going to happen.
Right.
Like mechanically, I like that. I just don't think the jump scares themselves are all that great. Speaking personally.
Yeah, I would agree with
the little girl, like I think the buildup is really great. It's the buildup is awesome. I just think the actual visual, like I said, the actual visual doesn't scare me. It scared me back when I was a little kid and I saw it in the Twilight Zone movie,
right?
But and then the jump scare that I just straight up thought was lame was the one with the phone.
Really?
Oh yeah, I thought that whole bit with the phone was kind of lame because it was just sort of tapping into like that. It almost was like, as Slasher Fred is in the comments, he said it looks like the Paranormal Activity movies, and that bit with the phone is like the one time the movie felt Hollywood to me at all.
Huh.
Just because it's like, oh hey, look, it's something from childhood that you associate as being innocent, but it's actually kind of creepy. I don't know. I just thought it was a little bit cliche.
I found that, to me, that was the one that I was talking about earlier that scared just the shit out of everyone in the theater.
That's funny. That's funny.
Even the second
I saw it coming too.
I think it was the buildup of the light on, light off, light on, light off, light on, light off, eyes. Light on, telephone, light off, light on, telephone ringing, face change.
Again, maybe if I watch it, on Shudder 2 a.m., it might be more effective for me. Again, yeah, I think the buildup of it was great. I just think the actual visual of the scary clown phone is a little cliche.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like when I saw the phone, I was like, "Oh, this isn't new."
Right,
this isn't like
right, yeah.
I just thought that the build-up and the way they earned it was really effective to the point that
that's fair. I mean, I can agree with you on both counts there.
Yeah, I don't usually get jump scared easily, unless it's in person. Then I'm a giant fucking chicken. But usually in movies, I can.
Not a big HHN fan.
No.
HHN, it honestly happened so much that by the end of the night, I was just sick of it.
Yeah,
I was honestly like mildly confrontational about it, just because of like the mix of just like being in fucking Florida at 1 a.m. is still damn hot, and that's something I will never forget.
Yeah, and then you have these people jumping out at you, and you're like,
no, at a certain point, I was just straight up done with the chainsaw people.
Oh, see,
I was done. I was just like as I was trying to walk out of the park, I was just like, if one of these people comes up in my face, I swear to God.
So I think I got a story that ties into that, but also into this movie a little bit.
Okay.
So I, despite being the animal guy, have a petrifying fear of pigs.
Oh shit!
Yeah, pigs scare the. And we got into this in a debate one time when I talked about Link Hogthrob and how much he scared the shit.
I think we did. Yeah.
But when I was a kid, we had a haunted house at the end of the street, and it was something that I was never brave enough to do because as a kid I was a giant chicken, and I think being a scared kid who grew up to love horror, that also had a huge effect on me. Like if I wasn't super nervous all the time, I feel like this movie wouldn't have hit as hard as it did.
Definitely.
But I remember going out and all of my friends would go to this haunted house and they get like king size candy bars at the end of it. And I refused for years. And then finally one year, I think I was 7 or 8. And I'm like, finally, I'm brave enough. I'm a big kid. I'm going to do this. So I went through and I had been scouted all day. Like I went over, I talked to my neighbors as they were setting it up. It was me and my friend on bikes, and like we helped them set up. So I'm like, I know the layout.
Right.
I know everything. I'm going in and I'm prepared. And as I went through, they jump out at me, whatever. It was fine. It would spook me a little bit, but I keep going. And at the end, I see the end of the garage.
Oh my God.
It's just a straight shot. And I'm like, finally, I'm safe. They've got me. I'm good. I'm going to get my king size candy bar. And all of a sudden, out of the wall, like there was a hidden trap door or something in the wall. Out of the door came a man in a pig mask.
Oh God.
With like a butcher's apron on with fake blood all over it. And he's wielding a chainsaw. And that experience scared me so fucking bad.
I could see that.
That I ran the other way back through the haunted house.
Oh no.
And to this day, chainsaws freak the shit out of me. And so don't pigs.
Oh man. Was that what gave you your fear of pigs?
It was.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
I'm not afraid of like potbelly pigs. I've worked with potbelly pigs.
Right. Yeah.
It's the pink pigs.
But like anthropomorphic pigs.
Oh my God. Anthropomorphic pigs are my biggest fear. Like
what about the shopkeeper in Cuphead?
Scares the shit out of me. Link Hogthrob scares the shit out of me. Miss Piggy.
I feel like the shopkeeper in Cuphead, I bring him up just because I'm playing through Cuphead again because of the DLC. He is a little disquieting just because he's got that like kind of like drowned out audio that you would hear in old cartoons.
Yes.
And on that note, did you ever watch any of these cartoons as a kid? Out of curiosity?
I didn't, but I did recognize, and they don't show it, but I recognize the audio of one of them.
Yeah, it's all Fleischer cartoons. And I am sure that I definitely had a VHS tape that was like all Fleischer cartoons when I was a kid. And like it had like stuff like Mighty Mouse and the Fleischer Night Before Christmas and some Fleischer Superman stuff. I'm sure it had some Felix the Cat, Betty Boop, Popeye, obviously. But I'm sure it's got, there had to be at least a few of these on there.
Right.
And because of that, it, like, I don't know, the cartoons definitely did a good job where, like, it's interesting because obviously they just picked him because it's in the public domain, but at the same time, I feel like because these are just public domain cartoons that have probably been on a million different VHS, like, cartoon compilations.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's like it exists in the back of your mind, but not in a very specific kind of way, like marathoning the Lion King VHS a million times would.
Right.
So that is really interesting to me.
One thing I found super effective about the cartoons here is it starts off as like a reprieve. It starts off
sure.
You watch the cartoon, like it cuts to the cartoons and you're like, oh, I feel more comfortable. Like it's a sense of like all this spooky shit's happening. I can't see it, but I know it's happening. And then you cut to the cartoons and you're like, okay, this is fun. And it kind of...
And it's certainly, I feel like the most structure that the movie has is kind of towards the middle where it kind of gets into a little bit of a rhythm of like good downstairs good, upstairs bad.
Right. And then...
And that lasts for all of like 10 minutes?
Right. But I think that the cartoons, they use it really effectively, in my opinion, in that it goes from being this comfort, this safe zone, to starting to become part of the problem. And starting to become some of the creepiest stuff. Because old cartoons can be creepy. Like,
oh, yeah, very much so.
Like, even outside of just the cartoon's subject material. Like, just the context of, like, an old 1920s, 1930s cartoon playing. Like, that's...
Well, I mean, it kind of like what I was describing with why I find the actual vocals in Cuphead to be a little disconcerting is that I always do find it creepy. Like, I think more so with cartoon audio than with, like old black and white movies. Because old black and white movies, you can still see the actual people. So there's like a level of humanity there.
Right.
But with old cartoons, it's like, everybody who is saying these voices is like long dead, and you're not even seeing their faces. You're just hearing these like these disembodied voices that are in most cases just kind of synced up with the lip syncing, and you know what I mean? It's like there very much is this disconnect there with old cartoon vocals that I've always had ever since I was a kid.
Yeah. And like also the character designs are simple, but that sometimes adds to this creepiness to it, where like you don't get that familiarity of like a Mickey Mouse, where it's like, oh, that's a mouse. Or even like a Betty Boop, where like that's a person. Some of these are like kind of like ambiguous or anthropomorphized.
Like anthropomorphic music notes and stuff like that. Yeah.
And some of it's really creepy. And this kind of did to me what the old cartoon segment of Over the Garden Wall kind of effectively did. And I kind of drew a connection between the two because I love Over the Garden Wall. It's one of my favorite pieces of media.
I have been dying to cover that on the podcast, but we're going to wait until 2024 just for the 10-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm. I would love to be a part of it. But that's I love Over the Garden Wall. It's one of my favorite pieces of media. But I
think it's the single best piece of media that Cartoon Network ever produced.
Oh, I'd agree with that. But it's in that when Greg's in, I don't remember the name of the land, but the little dreamland with all the old timey cartoons. There's something unsettling about it.
Totally.
And it's the same thing with I imagine you've seen Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Everyone's seen it. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
I'm one of the few people who hasn't. I know it's crazy.
You haven't? That's crazy.
I honestly, I feel like at this point the barrier of entry for me is too vast because there's so much like there's literal like multi-hour long icebergs about Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. So it's one of those things that just kind of passed me by, and I just find it almost intimidating to dip my toe into just because of how much lore there is with it. Like, I tried watching the first couple, and they were intriguing, but like I said, the amount of actual lore to keep up with is intimidating.
Yeah, I get that. But I remember when the third one dropped. I believe it's the third one, but it's about love. And they bring the yellow guy into this similar situation with like a cloud, and there's like all kinds of like puppets, but they're supposed to be like old-timey cartoon characters, kind of. And it turns dark from there. And this sort of thing is just like one of the aesthetics that I've really enjoyed. For a long time, where like you kind of use these terrifying or these old-timey cartoon characters that have just something uncanny valley about them. And not uncanny valley like traditional uncanny valley, just like it's unsettling.
Right.
Like if I went into somebody's house and they were playing old-timey cartoons, I'd be a little concerned.
You'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Or if like I just like if I turned on the TV and that's what was on, I'd probably be a little spooked. I'd be like, yeah, this is not happening. I'm not watching this.
The fact that it's 1995, though, that's one thing I want to talk about is the specific year.
Right.
Because my dad, that's actually one of the takeaways my dad had is like, yeah, it felt like them saying that it was 1995 was a bit pointless. I'm like, no, I disagree. That was one of the big selling points for me personally. Just because, like, I mean, PerGron, the 90s stuff, I'm sure, is probably like one of the few things in this movie that hits different for me than it did for you, because, you know, as we already established with World's Fair, you're a child of the 2000s. I'm a child of the 90s. Mm-hmm. So I was very much like almost exactly these kids' age in 95, right? Mm-hmm. So, and one thing I can very much tell you, the biggest nostalgia thing for me here, and kind of like, you know, the whole childhood nostalgia sort of turned on its head and being weaponized, is the Legos. And not just the Legos, my friend. Those aren't Legos. Everyone's calling them Legos, and there are a few Legos. But do you know what the bigger ones are?
Are those Mega Blocks?
No, they're Duplos, motherfucker.
Oh, yep.
And as a kid, I had a whole, like, tub of them. And also, you would see in the film, they had these, like, you know, these placemat kind of things where you would put the Legos down on, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I have some of those.
Oh, my God, that brought me back. And so I'm basically, you have a very specific memory that's attached to it. And my thing is more of a feeling, because I've definitely had, I've definitely had moments. I've lived at my grandparents' house since I was about 12 years old, but even before then, I would, I would spend the night over here all the time. So when I would spend the night over here, when I wasn't living here, I can very much relate to the stuff like the ice maker. They also had an old fridge with an ice maker. I probably didn't know what the hell was going on. Mm-hmm. Definitely creaking in the house and the house adjusting itself, specifically because our whole, like, we live on a hill and our whole first story is just basically hollow garage space. Mm-hmm. And so, like, yeah, there's definitely, like, the occasional, you know, floorboard shifts and creaks. And honestly, I've lived here so long that I barely even notice it. But when I was a kid, you know, when everything is, like, just amplified, much like this movie kind of tries to illustrate, then yeah, you're damn right. Every floorboard creak, every shifting with the wind would get under my skin for sure. Mm-hmm. And with the Legos, I guess the thing that really kind of got to me is I don't really think this ever actually, like, happened in my childhood, but it did just kind of give me this sort of ominous, uncanny feeling of, like, you know, when you're a kid and you're playing with the Legos during the day, it's just the most natural thing in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But when it's at night and everyone's asleep, and I don't know, there's just something about, like, even doing it behind your parents' backs when your parents want you to be in bed.
Mm-hmm.
That is, a little bit not creepy, but, it definitely gets the adrenaline pumping a little bit.
Oh, definitely.
But then I feel like how this movie presents it is sort of, and I would have this kind of thing when I would withdraw from stressful situations as I got older, but I was older, so instead of playing with Legos, I'd be like playing my N64 or something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But so the basic feeling I got was like desperately clinging on to this childlike thing that is so perfectly innocent and casual during the day. But at night, because of the lack of parents and because of the lack of supervision, and it just takes on this whole other context.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I kind of have the same thing. I remember as a kid, I got a portable DVD player for Christmas.
Yeah, same. This again is kind of like for me, I'm kind of having to weave a little bit more of my high school memories into this.
Mm-hmm.
But like for me, I went through a phase in high school where I was at least a few times a day. I would just, the concept of death would just enter my head, and I would just get the most fucking crippling existential dread.
That literally happens to me still to this day.
I try not to. I try, like, honestly, for me, it's kind of been replaced by just like a crippling anxiety over the state of the world, if I'm being completely honest.
That's fair.
It's like, fuck dying. I'm fucked now.
I remember taking Cosmos in high school, and I remember the first day my teacher going, so you guys, what we're going to establish here in this class is you guys are tiny little specks of nothing, and you don't matter to the greater universe. And I remember just sitting there and being like, fuck this.
No, for me, it was when we learned about AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
And just how quickly people lost their lives from it, and just, because I vaguely knew what AIDS was before then, but like, holy shit, learning about it firsthand and like seeing, like watching videos of people's firsthand accounts of it and stuff like that, it rocked me.
I can imagine that.
And so yeah. Anyways, my point with the death thing is that I had this portable DVD player, and I would stay up late at night and just watch fucking, not even Simpsons, but Simpsons commentaries. Because the thing is, like, even the Simpsons, it's like there were certain episodes that did deal with some heavy subject matter that I would just straight up avoid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with the Simpsons commentaries, it was mostly just the crew bullshitting with each other.
Right.
And to this day, PerGron, I have a hard time falling asleep without listening to something in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of established it. And so that is very much how I read the cartoons.
Yeah. So for me, I remember getting a portable DVD player one year for Christmas. And I remember I would watch it during the day, like before bed, but I was not allowed to watch it at night under any circumstances, because I had school in the morning. I could not watch it at night. Well, one night I snuck it up to my room like every kid does. And I popped in my favorite movie at the time, which happened to be the Air Bud spinoff, Snow Buddies.
Oh my God.
Which was my favorite movie at the time. And I popped it in, and I'd watched it so many times. And all of a sudden, my parents were still downstairs, so it wasn't like super late. It was probably like 10 o'clock at night. For a kid, super late. I remember the movie just froze.
Oh shit.
Out of nowhere, it froze, and I'm sitting in my dark room at this frozen screen, knowing that I'm not supposed to be
right
watching this, and thinking I have to go tell my parents like the thing is broken.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I'm going to get in so much trouble. But also, the movie just suddenly started rewinding, then fast forwarding, and then rewinding again. And it was just having some like spasm, like, and it froze again on like a different scene. And the scene that it was freezing on, was just this shot of the woods.
Oh my God.
and it just froze on the shot of the woods. I remember slamming down the screen onto it and like sliding it under my bed because I did not want anything to do with this.
That's great.
So it was like I was terrified, and this kind of gave me those vibes as well of being like, you're doing something you're not supposed to, and you're going to get in trouble. But this time you're not getting in trouble by your parents. You're getting in trouble with whatever is upstairs.
Right. Okay, so there's a couple other kind of avenues I want to go in here. We're kind of starting to wrap up a little bit. There's one thing in particular, PerGron, that I wanted to bring up with you, and I honestly don't know if you've even heard about this phenomenon. Have you heard of the falling down the stairs phenomenon?
I have not.
So basically, the whole idea of the falling down the stairs phenomenon is that there's a lot of people, myself included, that have very vivid memories of living in a 2-story house when they were like very small children. Like I'm talking 2-3 years old, like that small. Mm-hmm. And taking full scale tumbles down the staircase and being just fine.
Huh.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I never thought about it as a kid, but seeing how other people have that same exact memory, it kind of freaks me out.
Mm-hmm.
And it very much kind of made me think of sort of the ambiguous kind of unseen presence in this film that's both definitely threatening and also on some level acting as a guardian for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So let me weave that into probably my biggest actual story that I have saved up for this podcast. And I feel like this story kind of speaks to the ambiguous nature of this movie, because I'm going to tell you straight up, to this day, I still do not know if this was real or if I dreamed it. So basically, and that actually ties into the staircase thing, because when the staircase thing happened, my mother, being the concerned mother that she was, told me that I wasn't allowed to go upstairs without an adult, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty reasonable thing.
Right.
But you know what she told me to deter me from going upstairs? She told me that there was a boogeyman, PerGron. She pulled out the boogeyman card.
Oh no.
But this was her biggest mistake. She didn't say that there was a boogeyman upstairs and he was going to get you. And I vividly remember this terminology from when I was a little kid, and my mother fucking implanted the idea of goddamn cannibalism in my mind at 2 years old. She told me that the boogeyman was going to eat me.
Oh no.
So you can just imagine a tiny child, and just running through the mind of like what exactly actually being eaten by this, like, unseen terror would be like. And so the memory in question, like, obviously that did fuck me up for a while, like that. Right. I'm sure I had more than one nightmare about it. But the memory in question, it was this one night, and again, PerGron, this is kind of the closest link that I kind of have to this movie, is that I remember like waking up on the couch in the living room, which was downstairs, and occasionally, like when I was a kid, my parents would oftentimes, when I was a very small child, like, preschool child,
mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily have a set bedtime, and my parents would like stay. I actually remember a lot of times staying up late and watching David Letterman with my parents. Yeah, because I'm that old. That ages me, I guess. I don't know, but I digress. But I remember, in this memory, again, I still, to this day, I have no fucking idea if I dreamed this or not. I woke up on the couch, and it was late at night. It was like, it was definitely dark out. The TV was playing. I don't remember what was on TV. I wish I did. It was probably some fucking creepy public access cartoons. And my parents, much like Skinamarink, were not there. And of course, this was like the conundrum of they might have been upstairs, they might have been across the street. We were friends. We lived in townhouses at the time, and we were in the middle townhouse, and we were friends with the people that were both on the left and right of us. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like, it was very possible that my parents could have gone over to one of the neighbors' houses or something like that. But of course, the dilemma is that I was very unsettled by being in the house alone. And I wanted to get up to my room because I did view my room as kind of like the comfort place. Mm-hmm. But of course, there's the boogeyman factor.
Right.
And so I don't even remember how I got up to my room. I genuinely don't remember if I like climbed up the stairs or if there's like just a gap in my memory where like I found myself in this predicament and then suddenly I was upstairs. I genuinely can't tell you. But what I do remember is that suddenly I was in my bed and in my bedroom, and my bedroom had a window that overlooked the front doorway. And I heard this just really, really loud, thundering, banging on the door. Like, you know, as if it's like not just a routine police call, but like the police are like trying to bang down the door. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that level of intensity. And this is the one thing that makes me question if I did not dream it, because honestly, at that point in time, I didn't even know what a bang on the door that loud fucking sounded like. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I looked down and I saw just a man in a trench coat, almost like a detective looking kind of man. And that was the image that I formed in my head of the boogeyman.
Oh, jeez.
And from that point forward, I had a few reoccurring nightmares of the boogeyman, like throughout my childhood, at least 3 more of them. And he'd always be that kind of like faceless figure in the trench coat. You know, the trench coat was kind of like the defining feature. Mm-hmm. And, but to this day, my best theory for what was going down was that the neighbors on the left of us were having some really bad marriage issues. And, like, it was pretty bad. I don't want to get into personal details about it because it involves people that I still kind of know. Mm-hmm. But, I am willing to bet that if it was actually not a dream, that it was probably somebody from that house, like, banging on the door to be let in because there had been, like, a really big fight or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't fucking know. And even then, where the fuck were my parents downstairs? Were they upstairs? Why would they leave me downstairs? And these are still questions that I have to this goddamn day. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I do think Skinamarink very much feeds into that. Because for me, there's 3 central locations in my childhood. There's that townhouse that I spent like my very early years in. And then there's another house that I spent kind of like my formative childhood years in, like basically my kindergarten, elementary school years up until middle school. And then I've lived at my grandparents' house since then. My grandparents' house is kind of like the most central of all of them because it's kind of been in my life forever. But it's really interesting to kind of think how, and I still very much have dreams of especially that second house that I lived in, because it was when my memories as a kid were more fully developed. And I will still, oh God, these dreams kind of freak me out almost, because I'll have dreams of like, you know, going back to that house as if I'm still a kid and I'm like almost like picking up where I left off. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like my room's a mess and I'm like, okay, like time to clean my room because this is gonna be where I'm sleeping tonight before I go to school the next day. Mm-hmm. And it's just almost kind of like, I don't know, those dreams like, they almost mess me up more than actual nightmares go. Because it puts you into such a specific time and place. And that's exactly why the 1995 of it all got under my skin as much as it did.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's my story. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of has... Everyone has stories from their childhood of being just, like, a little spooked. Just being in your house. And I think this movie just captures that really well.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, again, it's not a movie for everyone. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to look at this movie and be like, that is just auteur art house garbage. There is nothing to look at. And there's going to be people who won't like it for that reason. There's going to be people who don't find it creepy because maybe they just don't engage with it. And then there's going to be people who really, like you, really wanted to like it and just maybe it doesn't hit for them. For me, it hit so hard. And I think this is, I'm honestly going to say it now, and I know it's only January. I have a feeling this will end in my top 10 of the year.
I mean, at the very least, this film is marinating in my head, and that is a very good thing. I am actively seeking out conversations about this film. I'm actively seeking out theories. So I definitely didn't dislike it. And I am I definitely think I'm going to have a better experience with it when I do watch it on my shitty laptop in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could definitely boost the experience.
All right. Any other stuff from your childhood, bad dreams or anything? I mean, we're kind of wrapping up, so I don't necessarily want to, prolong the podcast if it's not anything that you think will help the overall conversation, but just any other sort of memories that you want to get in there before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, I have one more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, so I remember when I was a little kid, I used to go to a daycare after school and then during the summer, and I was one of the older kids, considered the older kids, and we had an upstairs playroom that only the older kids could go to, because like you were talking about earlier, you don't want little kids going up the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And this older kids playroom had just a bunch of rooms. There was like a dress up room. There was a room that had like all the Legos and stuff. And then there was one room that was always locked and we were not allowed to go into it. Nobody knew why. So of course, being kids, what happens, legends start to form. And everybody has like these ghost stories about this locked room that nobody can go into. And I remember one time there was a sleepover at the daycare where we were invited to. And me and a bunch of my idiot friends decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get up in the middle of the night. We're going upstairs and we're going to go into the locked room.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a really long night of like eating a lot of candy, eating a lot of sugar, lots of pizza grease. So it was just stuff that like would alter your state of mind as a child into like, into like you're going to sleep and you're going to be having some fucky dreams. So I don't know if this was a real experience. It probably wasn't. I think it was probably a dream, or at least it was a dream combined with like real memories. And it's just over time has combined into one thing. But I remember sneaking up the stairs because we did not want to wake any of the daycare providers, because we were all to be downstairs. And we climbed up the stairs. And I remember us being able to finagle away because we had planned this all night. We had brought bobby pins. We had taken
Oh my God.
how to unlock door classes and everything. We wanted to know what was in this room. And I remember going upstairs. We were able to unlock the room, opening it up, and it was just empty. There was nothing in it except for a closet. And I remember us all going into this room and like, this is it. There was nothing in there. Because there were stories that there were ghosts living in there, and there were stories that that's where they kept the bad kids and everything.
Right.
And so we went into this closet, and my friends and I had the fun idea that we were going to lock each other in the closet.
Oh my God! Yeah,
we were
fucking that. That's when it goes from like I'm not surprised that there was nothing in there, but then like, yeah, idiot kids, of course you're gonna get scared by locking yourselves in the damn closet.
So I remember locking, it was my friend's turn. He went into the closet and we had to go one by one. There was no partnering up. We were like, yeah, you got to brave it. And I remember him coming out and screaming to let us out, to let him out so bad that he flung open this closet door. We all ran out following him, trying to figure out what the hell was going on.
Oh, man.
And as we go downstairs, we took a wrong turn and went down the wrong flight of stairs.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And we
ended up in a place that you were unfamiliar with.
We ended up in what was the little kid, like the preschool age kids, and on the walls, and this is probably why the telephone scared me so bad in this movie. On the wall were those Fisher-Price toys with the big eyes and the big clown smiles, and there were dolls that were sitting just like lined up around the corner, like around the frame of the wall, and they were all looking into the center. And there were Fisher-Price toys, and it was all just neatly organized to look into the center of the room where we came out. And we had never been in this room before because we were not allowed in this room because it was for the little kids. And just having these toys look at us was so scary in that moment that one of my friends started breaking down crying. Somebody had to come get us. But there was a period of time where we were in there. And as I sat in there, just seeing all these toys, my mind started playing tricks on me. And it was like things started to like shift outside of your peripheral. And from that moment on, I ended up having to leave the daycare. Like it was
scared us Jesus so bad. Christ.
And it was just that was my last story of just like that moment with those toys, I think was why it scared me so bad with this telephone, as well as the buildup. I think the buildup really, really
sure.
But like to me, those sort of toys are terrifying.
That does. I'm sorry, but like you say, you're not sure if it's a dream. That legitimately, to me, sounds like something that feasibly happened.
I think so, probably. But like, it also just like I don't know how much of it was actually there and how much of it was imagination.
Sure.
I know we did go up there. I just don't know how much of it's real and how much of it
is imagination. Like for me, I legitimately don't know. Like with my weird, ambiguous memory, I think the weirdest thing about it is how I was downstairs by myself and my parents weren't there. You know what I mean? That's the thing that I can't figure out.
Yeah. My thing was, I don't know where any of the daycare providers were and why they didn't see us. But yeah, so it's just, I just think this movie captures that childhood fear really, really well. But yeah, that's kind of all I got with it.
We didn't really talk about liminal spaces, but that's okay because we could probably do a whole other podcast about that. I'll just take the liminal spaces out of the title. I'll just call this Skinamarink and the Ambiguous Terror of Childhood Memories. I think that sounds a little bit better anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so PerGron, thanks so much for coming on once again, my friend. I think we're going to make a habit out of this. I think we will. Yeah.
We should come up with a show name of like a horror show.
Scary Adventures.
There we go.
That's like I've already done that. We just need to implement it.
There it is.
All right. Meanwhile, Mark Rylance is waiting in the corner, and he's not happy. PerGron, he's not happy at all. He's
like, you have canceled us twice now, and I'm afraid he's gonna eat me now.
Oh my god!
So stay tuned. If I to my team, and so you want to be an Imagineer. If I don't submit my stuff, go look for Mark Rylance.
It's never Dolly with Sully.